Hi, this is Kim Shanley of Tennis Reach. This is the second quick tip on our Ripple of Power series. We had an in-depth article comparing the power generation of Steph Curry, the greatest long-distance shooter and the greatest shooter in NBA history, and Roger Federer, probably the best all-time tennis player. So, to recap this, Ripple of Power, as they say in the martial arts, power generation is rooted in the foot, powered by the legs, and I've added the hips and pelvis snap into that, directed by the waist and expressed by the hands. There's a lot to that Ripple of Power, and we'll cover other aspects in later lessons. Right now we're just focused on this action of the hips and the pelvis. So in order to get the feel for this, if you're practicing as junior or coaching, you just want to start off in slow motion and get the basic ideas and have your players begin with the initial turn where the energy is being driven into this back foot, right? And we're down kind of over our front area a little bit, not out of balance, not back, but balanced in a forward position so that the energy, you start to feel the energy in our right hip down here, called the power pocket. So we're in here, and we're going to make sure that we work on the kinetic chain, the sequencing of the kinetic chain, and don't get into the habit of swinging our bodies, torso, arm, all at the same action in this blocky action. We're looking for more of a ripple action, a whipping action with our racket at the end of the day, and at the end of it, a leveraged point of contact. So we're down in here, and Wade's being down here, and we just have them practice this dip, which will be as we get into the full turn and about to initiate our movement from the slot up into contact. We have this dip, this hip flexion. So we just want to have them practice this, driving that weight in and then have them start to drive it out. Now, what we don't want is them to straighten up too much, because that will alter the ideal swing path and contact point. So we want them to stay down in their hips as this is initiated. So, but there's that push off and a turning, but we don't straighten up too soon. And it's not a rotational movement primarily, as it is a snap. This is the torquing action of our upper torso and body and out into our arm and hand. So just have them, practice these motions down in here. Rise as the racket starts to go forward. Racket tip should be held back until the last second. Okay? And once they practice that, then we can add the other parts of the motion a little bit. We want to start to get awareness of these two hip parts. Now the right hip and the right hip pocket is the primary force generator in this movement. So we have a lot of energy stored here and a lot of torquing power in our right hip as we start into this motion. But we also have a little bit of torquing and turning action in our left hip as well. But the problem is as we pull in and lock this, we don't let it open up and spin out. This is similar to the baseball player. So when they stride, they're locking this left side, and as they swing, they're pulling this left hip up and around in a tight little circle and holding it there so that the right side of the body and the leverage can come through for contact. Well, exactly the same dynamic in tennis. So we pull in but lock this left hip at a certain point in the swing so that our right side and our arm can accelerate that much more rapidly. So the way once we have the mental model, remember we always want to have the correct mental model of what we're going to do and then build an internal awareness. So how do we build the internal awareness of this? Well, basically you have your players focus on their belly button or slightly below it and the tip of this racket. So normally they might be down in here, something like this, and they'll start to swing this racket and turn at the same time. This is probably the number one problem among all junior players, is this tendency to make this a uniform movement and to be such in a hurry to swing this racket around. But what we want instead is have them focus that that tip is not going to move till we start the rotation and straightening of this belly button area. So once they're here, then they can come through. But we don't want to see this kind of action or this kind of action. All right. So this is a torquing action. And when it starts forward, we want this to start first. Well, we want the legs, the hips, and then the pelvic hip twist to start before the racket starts to swing forward and out and around. To practice this, we just do practice swings at first, right? So get them to focus tip, belly button, maybe start them in the slot, and just have them start the rotation down in their legs, in their belly button, pelvis, hip area, and then the racket follows. Racket is always lagging behind this movement, right? So we just want to get them into this lagging feel. It's very loose, but also very dynamic. So the next step, if you're working with smaller kids, the coach may want to drop balls for them and have them start back in their slot position the best they can do anyway, and just drop the ball here and get them to do the same initiation from the hip and pelvis and legs first before this racket swings forward. If you're an adult, or as you get better at this, you can just do drop hits. So we're here. We don't want all the complications of the complete motion. We just want the slot where we're stored up most of our energy before we initiate our shot. And just drop the ball and just work on initiating power from the legs, hips, pelvis twist. And just start slowly at first, but then you can, as you get a better feel for it, you can start to really feel for this power snap. And it won't be long before you start looking like Roger Federer. To make sure we have a clear mental model of this process, let's watch Roger Federer execute his beautiful ripple of power.